what's up? Red Panda Anthem. Red Panda, what's good?
At the end of last year, when we named our stocks, obviously when I named Amazon, that same I thought Facebook was going to be the most important one, just because the amount of money that he was going to be spending inside of the quote unquote metaverse. Obviously, they changed the name, and it was for that reason. I didn't know if people were going to believe in it the way that he did. And now when you hear people, especially in the tech world, a lot of the CEOs, like if you watch their interviews and they get asked about the metaverse, it's very discouraging.
They're laughing at him.
They're like laughing, they're discouraging, they're mocking him. And so when you said he didn't listen to his employees, I wonder at this level, do you block out everyone at this point and just really believe in zoning on what you write? Because if you're doing, I think the investment is $50 billion over 5 years on a space that no one knows to be
cares about,
or even is interested in being part of. So maybe he'll create his own world, but like, this is a lot of capital.
I mean, like the number one thing that people were complaining about in the metaverse is that the characters didn't have legs. If we're being honest, that metaverse product looks like Nintendo Wii. Has any of your kids said, hey, I just want to be in a metaverse? So we was having a conversation last night. People like, the metaverse is the next wave. And I'm like, but Apple or Google will probably run it. And you have to, it's one thing. We had a conversation maybe a year ago, and I won't say the gentleman's name. Rashad, you told me the gentleman had a very vile comment that he made to the person, and it led to part of his downfall. I always remembered that lesson. 2016, Zuckerberg made a super vile comment to Tim Cook. Tim Cook has been on his ass ever since to go out of his way. Apple's not even interested in AR and VR. But because you made an enemy with someone who too has an ego, Tim Cook, who was tired of being in the shadows of Steve. So if he was in the shadows of Steve, why would he let Mark Zuckerberg even lean into his lane and let you offend me when I didn't let Steve offend me? Let's go take their lunch just to be vindictive. And now, because, and I told everyone this will happen, now advertising is getting really big at Apple, and now they're going to start slapping ads all over that homepage of the App Store. What would you rather advertise your product if you're a business owner? On the iOS App Store or in Meta? Zuckerberg, I'm coming to save you, but you're going to have to listen and give up some billions. Do what you want to do, but y'all got 5 more years. Like I said, February 24th is when I called the death.
What can they do to reverse engineer the situation?
Give me $15 billion and then let the culture run it first. Any other ideas? I don't want to give. Shout out to everybody at Meta. I love it. And the crazy part, they have some of the best talent I've ever seen in the building. He won't listen to them. Huge mistake, man. Like, even me, I didn't want to do stocks. Like, my guy Ty, shout out Ty, he was the one who made me do Stock Club. I wanted to talk about trading. He's like, most people don't have the discipline for it. I could have said, no, I know this. I'm the master investor. He was like, bro, I'm telling you, you put them into trading first, it's going to be a disaster. Set them up for long term, then weave them into trading. We got to take the ego out of it. Because even as leaders, and truth, we were talking about it last night with Jaleel, the truth about being CEO and running the business, it's not fun all the time. I know they see us moving around and you think we're having the glamorous time. This is work. Anyone who is the chief executive for real, shout out Abdullah, shout out Christy, CEO, you are putting out fires every day. We as leaders have to listen to our employee base, our team members, customer base more often to get the wins, because all the genius and innovation is in there. The crazy part about Meta, they have about 14 to 15 people who have some amazing ideas that if they worked or they were allowed to execute them, Meta wouldn't be in this position. Have to listen. But what do I know? But I did call on the 24th of February, Facebook will fall apart. Most company, and I'm going to say it, Zuckerberg is Tech Suge Knight. Incredibly talented, incredible team, but his ego will lead to the misery of that company. Mike, clip that up. Chris, clip that up.
We'll monitor the situation. What stock do you believe is better than Apple?
Man, I hate to say it. And I love my baby Apple, right? I could argue, though, especially if we're looking at beta, I think Eli Lilly probably is the greatest company right now in the entire stock market. Virtually no.
Why?
Great question. Virtually no drawdown, so the stock has not dropped. And regardless of what happens in the world, okay, so if, let's say we go into like a zombie apocalypse, which I pray never happens, are people going to really be worried about FaceTiming? And, well, the cell networks are going to go down, but the healthcare space is still going to rise and do well. We've seen through COVID, so we go through these 100-year cycles. The Black Plague happened, and of course, the virus of 1928 and 1918 happened. COVID happened, with cancer rates rising, healthcare rates rising. Healthcare insurance rates rising. That healthcare space is probably the safest space to invest in, because people are always going to be sick. They're always going to need, unfortunately, in the Western civilization, they're always going to need some kind of medicine to help them. And Eli Lilly leadership reminds me a lot. I was talking to BD yesterday. They remind me a lot of like Dan Cathy's team. They're really quiet. They won't make a lot of noise, but behind the scenes, they're trying to find a way to own everything in that supply chain.
Well, the thing about it is that Apple can go into healthcare.
Absolutely, which I predicted about the insurance. Yeah,
they are going into healthcare,
but they won't go into pharma though, because they don't want that regulation.
Okay, but Eli Lilly can't go into Apple's. They can go into Eli Lilly's house, but they can't go into Apple's house. That, Apple is, they can do anything. Apple literally can do anything. There's nothing that Apple can't do.
And the cash flow says that they can do it too.
Eli Lilly is extremely good at what they do, but they can't do everything.
I think it's a mistake to try and do everything. We see that with Zuckerberg and Meta. They try to do marketplace. They're destroying Instagram slowly but surely. TikTok's coming to take their lunch. They're trying to do AR, VR, $50 billion invested. Huge mistake for a product that no one wants.
But I think it's also one thing with Apple is that you're right. You can't stretch yourself too thin, but they don't really, they stick to a few things and they always dominate it. So it's like they start out with computers, and then they start dominating that space. And then they go completely 180 to music. People just automatically assume Apple Music, and like it's just so synonymous with music. But at the time, it was a revolutionary thing. Like Apple is a computer company that's going into music. Apple dominates music. Like if you think about it, Apple is the biggest force in music, from Apple Radio.
Apple was the first culture vulture.
Well, yeah. So now they dominate. They dominate music, right? So now it's like they're very strategic in the areas that they go into. So there's talks of them going into the EV space. There's talks of them going to the healthcare space. So I feel like if they do decide to really put a plant in those spaces, it's going to be years of planning. It's going to be extremely thought out, and they don't really lose too often.
Yeah, you forgot.
I agree.
You forgot the biggest space: communications. They weren't a phone company, but they dominate the phone company, right?
And the App Store.
And you think about tablets, right? They dominated that. Wearables, forget about it. Beats by Dre was a thing, and then they bought Beats by Dre.
Great acquisition.
But like I said,
like the wearable space, the earbuds are now, when they, obviously the glasses are soon to come, they'll be dominating that space.
But even online, the App Store is an interesting thing too. Because if you really think about it, that's an online marketplace for a variety of things, all things that you function with. I don't even know how to fully explain.
It's the greatest toll road ever.
And they dominate that space.
30%.
They dominate the space of, no, they get 30% of revenue, but I'm saying they dominate that whole space. Their only competition is
if you have an app on it.
They're getting a 30%. They got everything.
The only competition is, what's the Android thing called?
Google Play.
Exactly.
They have no competition.
Nobody.
I know. These are all points that I've made throughout go watch every episode of Market Mondays if you want to be rich. Even 2 years ago, I predicted that we're getting to the insurance space. I agree 1,000%. If we're looking at beta though, everyone go Google, what is the beta of a stock? Eli Lilly's beta is 0.8%. 833. You want to be in businesses where the risk is very low. That is an amazing. 2008, December 1st, the stock was at $29.38. As of today, it is at $359.90. Average volume 2.86 million shares per day. Yield is 1.09%. Earnings per share is 6.27. That thing is a cash cow.
Yeah. And they're reporting tomorrow. So we'll get to see their quarter. Obviously today.
Yeah.
We had who was it? CVS is on Wednesday. Then you had Stryker today. So the healthcare earnings are going to be coming in now. So we'll see.
And I need to say, for the record, I'm not replacing Apple as my top stock. It's still 2 Tech 2 Index. The 2 Tech are Microsoft and Apple. But yes, in chat, if you've been hearing me say that since the very beginning of the show, I was saying this back in 2015. Stance has not changed. But I will say Eli Lilly in terms of how it's run. And if you're looking for lower risk, that beta definitely tells the story.
Okay.
And I'm going to say this too, historically. If you tune into the show, you don't need to listen to anybody else. We've been right on too much. We've told you Apple, told you Microsoft, called when a recession was going to happen in October, told you when Bitcoin was going to fall apart. We'll get to Doge in a second. Told you to reinvest in Doge at 5 cents. It's been up 95%. What more do you want from me?
You don't need no anybody. It's like Essence. Shout out to WizKid. You don't need no.
You don't know nobody else. And everyone who said, hey, a bunch of people said I was wrong about Facebook being a death of. Why don't I ever see any of them at the exchange or Meta or the meetings with Square, or they have no meetings with UTA or Net? Come on, everyone copied the model. I keep saying it. Follow the leader.
This that Red Panda Anthem. Ian, what's up? This that Red Panda Anthem. Red Panda, what's good? Red Panda Anthem. Your boy going up. I know they can't stand it.